Welcome to another shop update. I'm showing you these strap. I was given these by a guy that I do some hauling for. He had ordered them for his truck, and they were the wrong things that he ordered. So he had them sitting around for a while. They're 3-inch straps by 27 feet. Again, he had them sitting around for a while, didn't have any use for them, so when he asked me if I wanted them, and I took them. Now, I don't have the binders for them, they're just the straps, but I can get the binders for them. Also picked up some little tote things or storage bins. One of them, there's I think there's three narrow ones, or not high ones, 3 short ones and 3 taller ones. I'm going to use one of the shorter ones in the trailer bin to put some stuff in there. Keep my box of decking screws that I use to secure wood down to the deck of the trailer for cribbing kind of like things, and some other parts in there. But anyways, we're going to start this shop update by showing you a little maintenance on the truck and a little oil leak that I had on the thing that I fixed. The oil leak was caused by myself to begin with, but that'll be explained in the video. This maintenance was done after the trip to Washington. I didn't get it in the last shop update. There was also some maintenance that I did on the chains and binders and stuff like that off of the trailer. Because of the winter conditions, the salt and everything like that, they really get kind of messed up in the winter time. So I'm going to show you a little maintenance that I do on them, preventative maintenance and clean up on them. Then the last thing that I'm going to be showing you is I made a new chain binder rack for my trailer, a larger one and one that fits in between the upright rails of the trailer instead of extending out past it. So that's going to be the topics of this shop update. So here we go. So it's a day after I came back from that Washington trip, and I kind of stretched the miles out. It isn't quite 15,000 miles on the oil change, but it was like 14,900, and the recommended is 15,000. Now, previous to this, I had done it earlier, probably in the neighborhood of 12,000, but you know, I knew that it was going to be tight coming back, but that's what I did. So I just did an oil change, and there's that sensor. Let me grab a flashlight. I'm not sure if you, a flashlight, stick light. That goldish thing right there is the oil sensor, that pressure sensor for the gauges, and there was a small drip out of that 1/4-inch elbow and nipple. I think that's where it was coming from. It wasn't a drip. It's hard to explain. You couldn't see it coming out of there, but you could. Every once in a while, oil would show up on top of that oil filter housing, and so what I did is I just pulled the sensor off and took that another turn around the elbow and nipple, and then put the sensor back on, and we'll see if that resolves that issue. But again, close to 15,000 miles on that oil change. Rotella T4. Bring it back. Okay, so this fiasco here is my shop. What I did is pulled out all the scraps out of my storage box on the front of the trailer where I keep the straps. Again, I've commented on a couple of other shop updates when hauling about the salt getting into everything, and that's exactly what it did. It got into the box. It kind of creeps in between the lid and the cover. cover does a good job of keeping rainwater and stuff out of it, but it does not keep dust. And in the wintertime, the dust is actually the road salt that they put on the roads. It comes up and it gets into that and settles in there and gets all over the binders. It gets all over everything. So what I did is brought them in here and oiled them, cleaned them, oiled them, because they get like rusty. Now there's a coating of oil on it, but that salt corrodes the finishes. You see the finish on this one, it's at like, I'm not sure if it's anodized or what it is, but this one was the same way at one point in time. So I brought them in here, clean them up, oil them, get them sorted out. That's a rack that they were sitting in, and see, that was a powder coated rack, and even the salt and moisture got into that thing and started rusting it. It's not sitting directly on the bottom. I've got it sitting on them wooden blocks. I brought them wooden blocks in too, because again, the bottom of that box has got holes in it, so if water does get into it, it drains out. But I think sometimes water splashes up through them holes sometimes in some amount. Probably some of it does come in through the cover. Mist or spray coming up off the back of the truck gets up in there. But what I'm doing is just I'm going to go through, and there's 3 compartments in that little storage bin. What I'm going to do is go through, measure all my large 3-inch straps, and sort them out by lengths in the bin, so that I know exactly what I've got when I grab it out of the bin, which length is in which, instead of having to pull them out and second guess. I know the ones with the chains are 27-foot straps. There's some shorter ones in there. I think I was kind of sure, and again, I bought these things a long time ago, or started buying them a long time ago, so you kind of forget over time which one is which and what was bought, what the length was when it was bought. But I'm going to go through, just measure them, kind of put them in some kind of an order back into there. I've got to clean that trailer up. I've got that haul that I've got to make out west. So, and this is Sunday that I'm showing this to you, and I'm leaving Tuesday morning. One of the other things is in our past video I showed you having to take some steel, long steel, to a fabricator. What happened is I left my trailer there, and he took the steel off. Well, some of my dunnage disappeared in the process, so I went out and bought a couple of more 4x4s just so that I would have them. But I need to get all this stuff taken care of and get the trailer cleaned back up. I took all the dunnage out of the dunnage rack so that I could wash it or spray it out. It's got dirt and residue in there, and I want to get it sprayed out. So I'm going to go out with a power washer this morning, wash the trailer off, wash out that dunnage rack, wash out the box that this stuff gets held in. I'll probably scuff that crate up a little bit and throw some paint back on it. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of show it to you. It's kind of like a never-ending process of keeping this stuff maintained and the equipment clean and usable during winter hauls. Okay, I'm showing you this sketch out of a pad, legal pad, because I'm going to be making a new chain binder rack for my trailer. Now, my existing chain binder rack is only got 1 tier and will hold, I think it's 16 or 18 chains and binders. The new one is going to be two-tiered. It's going to fit in between the uprights of the trailer also. It's not going to extend past it like the old one did, and it's going to hold 24 chains and binders. So there's kind of a sketch of what I'm thinking of. One of the binder, the notched bars that hold the chains and binders will go on the back of the support, and the other one will go on the front, so that they're going to be staggered like 6 inches front to back, so that I can get 2 tiers. My intention is to have the chains in the back and the binders in the front, and that's looking at it towards the front of the trailer, be on the bed looking at it towards the front of the trailer. So chains in the back on the upper one, binders in the front towards the back of the trailer, and lower on the other one. And here's another page just showing me some dimensions and how I want to get it. Now, originally I had sketched it out using like pieces of I-beam. I changed my mind and was going to go to channel. And when I got down to the supply house, they didn't have that channel. I had called him previously. He said that he was going to get it for me, and I went down there about 3-4 days later, and it didn't come in. He wasn't there actually, but it didn't come in. So I just changed it to angle iron, and I'll show you that as we progress along here. Just part of a little shop update. I'm over here at the K&T mill, and what I'm doing is just milling slots into a piece of steel bar. I'm going to build a new chain binder rack for my trailer, and what I've got is a piece of straight bar that's going to go between 2 cross supports and hold the chains and binders. So I'm just milling the slots for them so that the chain hook or binder hook sets down into them. I'll bring you back. I'll just show you a little bit of it. I'm not going to show you much of it, but I'll show you a little bit of it as far as the milling process goes. Now, I could have cut it out with a plasma cutter or a torch or something, but you know, I've got the mill, might as well use it. The reason the machine is, if you notice it shaking a little bit, is because it's not bolted down to the floor. Okay, so this is the second one that I'm cutting. This is going to be for the chain, for the chains. So it's going to be 2-tiered. One is going to be in the back of the cross supports, which is probably the chains, and up. And the one will be in the front. And when I say back and front, it's as I'm looking forward, like towards the truck. So the chains will probably be in the back and higher towards the truck of the support. and the binders will be in the front or towards the trailer side of it, and lower. But anyways, so this is the second piece. The other piece was 3/8. This is 5/16 actually. It's just something that I grabbed. I could have used 3/8, but I found this piece as a drop or a cutoff from there in the rack. So when I went to the metal supply place, this is what I found. So it'll work just fine. Doesn't actually have to be as strong as the ones for the binder. It would support the binders, but there's a little less weight on the chains because most of the weight of the chains is sitting in the basket, whereas the binders are just free hanging from the rack. So there's a little more weight there. So originally on this chain binder rack, I was going to build the uprights out of channel. Well, I called my metal supplier and he was supposed to get, I thought he had the channel. So I kind of held off for about 3 or 4 days before I actually went down there to pick it up. And I went down there and the guy wasn't in, but they called him and he said, oh, he didn't have it, but he had ordered it and it hadn't come in yet. And so I wanted to get going on this project. So what I did is bought this 4-inch angle iron, and I'll kind of show you what I'm gonna do. On the trailer there is I-beams that come up that support the gooseneck itself. So these are going to get bolted against the I-beam. One will be this way, let's call it on the left-hand side or driver's side. This one will be this way on the passenger side or right-hand side. What I'm going to do is notch the bottom to fit around the chain basket. Up here, the cross support will be just welded onto this here and on the other side, and will support the chains and back. And then for the front one, so that there's a spacing in there, I've cut these things and I will weld these things on there, and they will that will support the other one on the face of the rack that's going to hold the binders. So sometimes plans change and you've kind of got to adapt to it. Now there was the two racks, and here is what I did is, because the top of the trailer is kind of pitched down a little bit. So the gooseneck is over here, and simplistically it just comes over and then it pitches down a little bit like that and then comes down to the trailer. So what I did is I cut these at an angle to kind of replicate that angle of that pitch, even though this thing will be sticking up further than that. It'll be up here like this. It'll be at the same angle when it comes down, just so it kind of keeps some symmetry in the whole thing. But anyways, I'll bring you back. Okay, we're over here at the welding bench, and so this is the upright supports with the two pieces welded onto them. I'm not going to be able to stand it up because I've cut the bottom. As you can see on that leg over there, I have cut the bottom to notch out for the chain bin. So again, chains will probably go in the back, binders in the front. I just welded this up yesterday. It's the next morning, and I took it off of the table so that I could just kind of reposition it. There's some welds that on the back side that I had to make. What I had done is clamp the two pieces of angle iron down to the table, squared them up, sat the binder racks across, or binder and chain racks across, and welded them on. So there was the welds on the bottom that I need to get to, and as long as I've just taken it off of the table, the welds that I would have had to do in a downhill or uphill position laying on the table, I'll flip it over so that I can do it horizontally. Yeah, like welds in here. I don't know whether you can see that, but what I'll do is flip a light on here. So that weld that has to be done, I can just do horizontally. So here is my new chain binder rack. It's leaning up against the skid. I just painted it with well, I painted the other side of it last night, and then I had to make a run down to Washington, PA this morning, dropped some stuff off, and I came back and I painted this backside now with PRO 15. So after this dries, and it takes about 24 hours for it to dry, what I'll do is I'll sand it down a little bit. There's kind of some rough spots where when I painted, and let me just add this before I tell you about painting this expanded metal. This expanded metal thing is to just cover up the chains as they're hung in the rack. Kind of keeps them from bouncing out, or the binders from bouncing out. It could be used as you could put a lock on it so that people can't take them out. Of course, you could cut the lock off or cut the expanded metal or something. But the point that I'm bringing up about this thing, I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep this. The expanded metal, I had it. I took it over to the break and bend it, and but I'm not really sure that I'm going to keep it. I might want to put something enclosed on there with a couple of tabs that locks could be put through. But I had this, so I just used it as a temporary thing. But when I painted this yesterday with that POR, and I painted the POR on with a brush, I had it leaning up against the wooden skid, and what happened is the paint went through. I painted the back side of it, and the paint went through, and it kind of stuck to the skid. And there's a couple of places where kind of some of the wood of the skid came off. So I will take some sandpaper and go over it before I paint it. And I'm probably just going to paint it with like a Rust-Oleum paint, gloss black. Not going to get fancy or anything on it. Just want to, you have to paint over that POR to protect it, because it's not UV stable. So you can't leave it like that. In the same way goes for my haul truck frame. I can't leave it like that. It has to be painted over, or the paint will deteriorate, fade terribly wherever it's exposed to sunlight. And this thing would be exposed to sunlight. Now, not all of the truck frame will be, but I will paint over the entire truck frame where the POR 15 is put onto it. But I'll so tomorrow I'll get some rattle cans and just paint that up, sand it, paint it up. But I also got 4 new binders and 4 new 10-foot chains. Now, these are 3/8 binders, and they're the ones that have the handles that tilt down. I really like those things. Yeah, I really like them. They're not, it's those handles sticking out on those regular binders. To begin with, the regular binders, let me tell you something about these binders. You can't, on my regular binders, they're old school regular binders, and the things will screw out. If I don't put something in the bottom link while I'm driving down the road, it'll screw out and drop down into the chain basket. So what I have to do is run a chain through it to keep that from happening. Somehow they've designed these things so that these screws won't come out of there. They come to the end and they won't come out. How they've done that, I have absolutely no idea. It's I think about that quite often. I'm not really sure how they do it. You know, no, I'm not really sure, because it screws up and down fine. Gets to the end and it won't come out. How they did that and kept it screwing up and down, but it stops at the end. I'm not really sure how they did that. Okay, so I painted this thing, and what I did is clear coated it. Now, I've had an issue with this issue that I'm about to show you in the past with another paint and clear coating. Now I want to show you the cans. This is Rust-Oleum, and this is a gloss black, and it's enamel. And this is a clear coat, and it's also labeled as enamel. And I'm going to show you what happened. And it only happens in certain areas. Can you see that kind of crinkled effect? That's a issue that I had. The black paint was fine, was smooth, and as soon as I sprayed that clear coat over it, I got that crinkled effect in certain areas. And then you can see at the end of this thing that it really didn't happen all over, it just happened in part of it. Now, you can see on the sides that it only happened in certain areas. Okay, so what I did was I went through and sanded it down. You can see where it's been sanded, where it's dull over here. And then I sprayed that clear coat over it again. And again, I'm only getting it in just certain areas where it was kind of almost all crinkly before. Now, what is so strange about this, I used to be in the automotive business and automotive body business, and that crinkling effect is an effect that you get when you spray a lacquer type based oil or paint over enamel. Now, it shouldn't happen on enamel over enamel. Absolutely should not happen on enamel over enamel. And I can't figure out what's going on with it. And again, I've had this same issue a year or so ago using Krylon type of paints and spraying their clear coat over the top of their regular coat. And it's not like I'm using two different product types. I'm not trying to spray Krylon over Rust-Oleum or Rust-Oleum clear coat over Krylon. I'm using the exact same coats. And again, it shouldn't have absolutely anything to do with the POR 15, because that is a lacquer type based paint, and I sprayed the enamel over it and I didn't have any issues with it at all. It only happens when I spray their clear coat over their finished product. I don't know. I'm not going to bore you in this part of the shop update with a long-term thing on this, but I'll let you know what I find out and what happens. Okay, I told you I wasn't going to do a long or a in-depth thing about this, but what I did is I put a piece of tape here, and I had just showed you where I had sprayed the clear coat back over it again, and it hazed in some places. Okay, so I put this piece of tape here, and this was that sanded section that I hadn't sprayed the clear coat over. What I did is I just went over it with the black enamel, and it did it a little bit in some places, but basically it didn't, it doesn't do it with that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna sand it off, and then I'm gonna spray the black back over it again, and I'll bring it back and show it to you. And there it is resprayed. Now, it did with the black. It did crinkle a little bit in a couple of spots, but absolutely nothing like it did with that clear coat. I'm kind of miffed. The only thing that I can think of is there's something in that clear coat, some kind of a solvent in that clear coat that is not in the painting coat, that makes the paint crinkle, the underlying paint crinkle. But anyways, I'll bring you back, let you know what I find out. Okay, let's wrap this deal with the painting up. Here's what I'm gonna do is I kind of sanded those areas off and just sprayed over it with a gloss enamel. I'm gonna give up on that clear coat finish on it for two reasons. I'm not really sure what's going on and why it's doing it, and it's a pain kind of in the ass to sand it out and have to repaint it again. And I'm not going to mess with it because I want to get this thing onto the trailer and get it in use, because I have a haul that I have to make. The other reason is I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this thing. I'm probably going to change it out for something else, but I'm not really sure yet. So just quickly, last night after I did it, I went to go home and saw that there's a body shop down the street from me, saw that the guy was there. So I stopped in and asked him about it, and he agrees that he doesn't know really why it happened, enamel on enamel. He agrees that crackling effect, or let's call it a crackling effect, is caused by something over enamel. Usually it used to be a lacquer type situations painted over enamel that would cause that, and he's not really sure why it happened. He says he doesn't use rattle cans very much. It's all logically spray guns that he uses, and mixed paint that he for auto finishing. But one of the things that I said to him, the only thing that I can think of is because the cans are both tagged as enamel, the drying time on the paint is like 4 hours, whereas the drying time on the clear coat is only 1 hour. So I'm kind of thinking that the agent that they put in there for drying, quick drying on the clear coat, is reacting to the other, regular enamel. So it's that drying or hardening agent that they put in there for the more rapid drying. So what I've got to do is I'm going to put this on the trailer. There's a couple of things I got to do. It's kind of cold outside. I can't get the trailer in the shop, so it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'm going to have to put the trailer out behind the shop and work on it out there in the cold. But I've got a couple of hauls that I've got to make, so I want to just I want to get this thing on before I have to do that. I'll bring you back. Okay, here is the chain rack onto the trailer. I just put it on. I just wanted to give you a shot before I loaded it up, and I'll give you a shot afterwards. Okay, take two on this rack loaded video. So here it is, the video, the rack, chain binder rack, loaded with the chains. It's got 12 chains in there, 12 binders. Out of the 12 binders, 4 of them are those old school binders. I think I've talked about it in another video. Hope you don't get blown out by the sun here. Here's the back side of it. I'll try and hold you over here so you're not in direct sunlight. Back side of it. The chains are on this side of it. Binders on the trailer side. And there we go. That's it. That's probably going to be it for this shop update. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe.